Happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome into another edition of GC Live. I hope you guys missed us because we are back with another primarily baseball episode here on Gamecock Central. Appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, I'm your host, Jack Veltri, joined as always by my good friend and former right-handed pitcher for the Gamecocks, 2010 College World Series champion, Ethan Carter. Ethan, it's been a few weeks, man, but how we doing?
Doing good, man. Actually, down here in South Carolina for the week, down here in good old Little River. So, trying to enjoy some sunshine. The rain will hopefully hold off for us, and excited to get back on here and talk some Gamecock baseball with some transfer portal stuff.
Yeah, it's been a few weeks since we caught up, and the last time we spoke, the season had just ended for South Carolina at the SEC tournament. So we caught up at the end of May, and we did say we were going to come back on at different points throughout the summer, and of course in the fall, once fall baseball gets going with practices and scrimmages and all that, we'll reconvene again at that time. But I felt like this was a good time to get on here, talk a little bit about just everything that's been going on lately with the transfer portal opening up. There's been a lot of movement with guys leaving, new guys coming in, just a lot of stuff to break down. So we're going to talk about here all for probably about an hour, just chatting about what's been going on, catching up, and looking ahead to what's next for this program, as there's a lot of work to do here in the off season. It's been very busy so far, like I said. But before we get going, real quick, need to talk to you guys about our main show sponsor. Right above me here, if you're watching, Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans. If it is that time for you where you're looking for your dream home, it's summer right now. It's probably a really nice time to go out there and buy that dream home. Maybe you're ready to take that next step. If you don't know where to begin, it's a complicated process for sure. So give a call to our guy, Clint Hammond, CMG Home Loans. He'll help you out, take you through the process step by step, and get you all settled in and help you find that dream home. He's been in the mortgage industry for over 20 years now. He's a lifelong Gamecock fan as well, and also a longtime supporter of Gamecock Central. So you're in the right hands with a guy like Clint. If you're interested, give him a call, 803-422-6797. The NMLS number for him is 71597, or go to clinthammond.com for more information. That will be above us here on screen if you're watching live right now. All right, Ethan. So let's I don't really know. Where do we begin? Let's probably talk about the guys that are leaving. I think as we talked about a few hours ago, kind of planning out how we were going to do the show and whatnot, I kind of want to run through the names and we kind of just break it down as which guys are probably the most impactful leavers. I don't mean if leavers is a word, but the most impactful players that are leaving. Yep. And then we kind of look at it like, okay, these guys, you could probably live without them next year. And the other guys, it's like, all right, they didn't really do much this year, or didn't get much of a chance. It is what it is. And you just wish them well and hope they can find a new spot. So does that sound good with you?
Yeah, man. No, I think that's definitely good. Try to figure out where we stand as a roster right now, and then how that impacts the team. I like where your head's at.
Yeah. So 14 guys are currently in the portal, and again, this is just as we're going live here on June 5th of 2025. So things could always change after this. So if you're watching in the future, things probably have changed. But for those watching live, Brian Bakes was the first guy to enter the portal. And right off the bat, I'll say this. I always thought very highly of him. I thought when he came here as a freshman last year, he had gotten some run in some games early on in non-conference play. I think I had said that he was going to be the most impactful freshman, which I was definitely not right on because, number one, he just didn't play as much as I thought he would have. But when he did, he was fine. And then this season, he just did not get consistent opportunities. And when he did, he struggled a lot. So I don't think South Carolina is necessarily losing much here. However, I will say it's at the catcher position, which is a spot that they definitely need to have filled before next season.
Yeah, no, maybe jumping ahead a little bit, but, kind of what we had talked about, that's definitely the most pressing need this team has, or the program has kind of moving forward, is at the catcher position. It was a down spot in the lineup this past year, and now you don't have any depth there at all. I mean, you have Talmadge, but again, there's no depth. And I like Talmadge a lot as a player. I think he's more of a depth to it. But yeah, Ryan, I thought that opportunities would be there for him this year, especially once the kind of the bad luck with Talmadge happened, and it just didn't quite work out the way we thought it would. So yeah, again, it's a theme I think we're going to have here is it's going to be a team that has to, rebuild from the ground up. There's going to be a lot of depth pieces. There's just going to be a lot of new faces, and that's just kind of where we stand as a program. And probably not the worst thing after a historically bad season for our guys. So it's gonna be a lot of new faces, a lot of names to go through here.
Yeah. Also losing Max Coffer at the catching position, which again, I don't really think that is too tremendous of a loss. I'll kind of actually just break this down by probably guys that are probably most impactful, and we can kind of run it on it that way to kind of move it along a little bit. But just some of the names here that I think, and you could chime in as well on this, Ethan, guys that I really don't think you're losing much with. I think it kind of just came down to the fact of players struggled or just didn't play much at all, or didn't get much opportunity for whatever reason. And then I think the staff probably came to a mutual decision of, hey, it's probably best if you move on. I think that's kind of what we see here with guys like Caden Gaskin, Tyler June, who redshirted this year, didn't even play. Wyatt Evans did not play at all this season as well on the mound. Roman Kimball, who was a weekend starter for South Carolina last year and went to the draft combine, did very well there, it seemed. And then this year just did not get the best opportunities, I don't think, to pitch, but also just struggled when he was out there on the mound. Will Tippett, kind of the same deal. Another guy that had a lot of potential when he came to South Carolina. Really liked him as a freshman. I mean, he was playing in the starting lineup in center field during the Super Regional against Florida. So, I mean, he was a big piece there. Eddie Copper didn't pitch at all this year. Another guy that was recovering from injury, and that's a whole another rabbit hole of information there. Nolan Naraki was banged up this entire season. Eli Jersenbeck did not pitch at all. Brendan Sweeney struggled. Ryder Garino, a freshman right-hander, who I think is kind of an underrated loss. Someone that did pitch pretty well at times this year, but again, you look at the ERA and stuff, not necessarily great. You got Tyler Pitzer, Nolan Naraki, and of course Jace Woida to round things out. So I'll kind of group these guys together and you could agree or disagree here, on the guys that I think are probably the most impactful losses in the portal. Because I think most of these guys that you're losing that I just listed, you're probably fine without them moving forward. I'll give you a few names here. Jace Woida, I think, is probably the biggest loss because he hit 300 for you this season on the dot. He was a nice piece to have in the lineup even before Ethan Petrie got hurt. He was still kind of bouncing around in the order and whatnot. And then when Ethan did get hurt, Jace was normally in that 4-hole in the lineup and provided some nice moments for this team for sure. Another guy I kind of look at is someone that I think he should have been a lot better this year. I just don't think the usage was probably the best. Tyler Pitzer. I mean, look at the ERA. It's nearly 7 this season. But coming into that Auburn game, the one where they lost 24-2, he had a 4 ERA coming into that game. He gave up 10 runs in about an inning and a third and was kind of just left out there to, just take the blow and, did have his ERA go up about 3 whole, points, which is not necessarily three runs, I should say, which is not necessarily ideal.
No.
And the other one I would really say that is kind of a more impactful loss, depending on how you look at it. I mentioned Garino. He's probably one that I would consider with this. Jersenbeck, I think, he showed so much as a freshman back in 2023, but he has not pitched since then. And also, he had Tommy John, missed all of 2024. 2025, he was set to return to the mound. He had went through the preseason in the fall, did not look great at all, especially in the January, early February weeks leading into the season. I mean, he was getting rocked. And then we come to find out, we learned from Paul Maneri that Jersenbeck had a elbow injury, and that put him out for the season. So he has not pitched since 2023. He's still got a lot of value, obviously. I don't think he's going to get drafted this summer. He's still appearing on some draft prospect rankings, but he's a guy that I don't see necessarily getting picked. And he's entered the portal and going to be looking for a home elsewhere. So I think those are probably the three guys. If I had to pick the top three guys that are probably the most impactful leavers, those are probably them.
Yeah, I agree. I think to your point, Eli is kind of the white whale, I guess, of the potential was there. Again, he was so good as a freshman in 2023. But saying Coach Henry said you can't make the team in the training room. If you're in the training room all the time, it's hard to make a team. It's hard to make impact. So I think it's probably best for Eli and the program, honestly, for just kind of a fresh start there for both, because it's tough to put a lot of the hopes and dreams of your staff, of your pitching staff, into somebody that, again, will have now been 2 years that you haven't seen them on a mound in real game action. One name I'll throw out that I think I really like the potential there, and it's kind of the thing with the pitching staff. Nobody threw good this year, kind of flat out. Nobody had a year that you'd look back on and be like, yeah, I'm real excited about what they did last year for this upcoming season. So really, the pitchers leaving, it feels kind of silly to say, man, that's a tough loss. But again, when you go through the long, the ebbs and flows of a season, you can never have too many arms. So I think you hitting on Tyler Pitzer is big. And I think Ryder Guarino as a freshman, you always expect a little bit of a leap going into that sophomore year. So you're hoping to kind of him build off that freshman year, that you could, you could see the progress, going forward. Unfortunately, he's in the portal as well. But Brandon Sweeney, I think he was good, man. I liked Brandon a lot. I think the stuff was good. I think he got some shoddy. He got a couple tough losses or blown saves, especially early in SEC play. I think about Oklahoma, just the booting of the ground ball at second, and just some other tough luck things there. Reminds me a lot, I view things through how my teams do. So he kind of reminded me a little bit of Clay Holmes, in his Yankee tenure. Wicked sinker, throws it pretty well, but it gives up too much contact for you to want that to be your closer. It's too much contact, especially with the way these guys are, can swing in this league. So I think Brandon would have been a good piece to have, not as your closer. That's think of more of the John Taylor role for him. Two different pitchers, but John pitched to a lot of contact. I mean, John was underneath, but that's kind of what if I'm building a perfect staff, that's kind of what I'm thinking of Brandon of Sweeney. Is he's in there to come get a double play, come seventh, eighth inning, get me to my guy that's going to be dominant out of the pen. So I think that's the last guy I wanted to highlight that's leaving, that I think in a more role suited to him could be a real help to any program he's going to. I don't think he very well could prove me wrong and go to his next space and save 20 games next year. But I just think that he's better served in a setup role. And I think if that could have been the role he was used here, I think he could have had a really good year in context of what a really good year was on this team this year.
Absolutely. So 14 guys in the portal, like we said, and
so many.
At this time, I have not seen any of them commit anywhere. So if that does happen, we'll have it on Gamecock Central, obviously, but have not seen any of these guys commit yet. I will say Roman Kimball is pitching in the MLB Draft League, which
good.
Has gotten underway. Matthew Becker also pitching. Both those guys are throwing tonight. So if you want to check that out, it's at 7 o'clock tonight. They're not going against each other, but they're pitching for separate teams. There are 7 guys that we do know now that we have confirmed that are coming back for next year.
Yep.
We'll just go in chronological order here. You have Talmadge LeCroy. You have KJ Scobie. Both those guys announced on their own publicly that they are coming back. You have, let's see. I also forgot Zach Russell is also coming back too. That is one name I forgot to add to this list. So you have those guys. You have KJ Scobie, like I said, Bo Hollins, Parker Marlott was the latest one to announce his return. Jackson Susie and Jake McCoy, and I think and Aiden Palmer too. So that's 8 guys that are returning for sure. So, and that includes Zach Russell, like I said. But I think the big name here, obviously KJ and Bo are the biggest names on here without question. Those are your cornerstones that you need to be building around for the future. I will say, though, there's something about bringing back McCoy and Marlott that's very nice. Like, you look at Jake's numbers this past season, not necessarily great. The strikeouts, where you want them to be. 77 days on the year, led the team in that. He also led the team in walks, though, with 40 walks on the year, had an ERA nearly 7. And so it was kind of a year of struggle for the pitching staff, but like Jake was very good at times. That Clemson start was phenomenal, where he struck out 12 guys and only walked a few. Like, he looked very much in command over those 6 innings that he pitched. And then you get into Parker Marlott. I think the way he was used this season, you kind of mentioned Sweeney earlier. I kind of disagreed with a lot of the way that Marlott was used. Like, I can't forget the fact that, he's warming up in a 5-1 deficit against Winthrop on a midweek game on a Tuesday where they almost lose. And obviously they were down 5-1, but he's warming up. And then obviously South Carolina comes back and wins that game, and he's able to get the save. But it's like in your head, you're like, why is he warming up in 5-run game, whatever it was? And it's like, why are you using him here? Sure, it worked out, but it's like, it's kind of a weird spot to be using a guy in. And then they did the same thing in the SEC tournament, kind of, and that inflated his ERA from, he finished with a team best 4.18 ERA, but for a time he was in the 3s. So the numbers are very good on Parker. He's been good here for 2 years, and I expect him to be one of those guys in his junior season next year. We're talking about candidates for a closer, setup guy. He's definitely going to be right in the mix there.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's I don't care how prevalent the transfer portal is now. It's extremely tough to try to build an entire staff from scratch. So getting some guys that have known the program, around the program, keeping those guys in house is huge. I mean, and you can speak to this. You watched. If you didn't watch every start, I know you were on vacation 1 week, but you saw at just about every start Jake McCoy made. The talent's there. Everything's there. It is just cleaning up some of the command issues. Don't hit a guy with 2 outs and then walk the next guy. And then it just kind of, he was so close to having, I wish I could, delve into the numbers a little further and see how many 2-out runs he gave up. Because I feel like a lot of his outings were 2-out runs given, he'd get 2 quick outs on 2 strikeouts. And then, he couldn't finish the inning. So, I think some of that, if he can clean that up, I think, he's prime for a big season to be able to lead this staff. And to your point, the two biggest saves were KJ Scobie and Bo Hollins. We talked about it on our last show. Like, those people can be as frustrated with the staff and everything. All criticism warranted from the staff right now until further notice. But they had the objective. Number one objective was keep those 2 freshmen, and they did it. So off to that right there is a win as far as the off season is. And I know that's the worst consolation prize is that, but it is something to build off of for this portal season, is making sure those 2 guys didn't go somewhere else and help another SEC program, because they will. I mean, they proved that they're legit SEC players as freshmen, and if you were not able to retain them, they absolutely were going to go help another SEC school win ball games. So that's huge. And then, the last one I'll kind of mention is Talmadge. I think it's good to have Talmadge in there. I think Talmadge is the perfect depth player. He's seasoned veteran. knows the program, knows the conference. I compare my ideal for Talmadge would to be in a Robert Berry space. Somebody who can catch if you need them in a pinch. You need to give somebody a blow, or whatever catchers you're bringing in. Something happens to them, they've got to miss a couple games. Talmadge can fill in there. Talmadge can fill in at an infield spot, can DH somewhere. Like he's the kind of player that you need on a team. But it's not gonna be it's not going to be always successful if you're having to rely on him every game. I think a reduced role would definitely maximize him and the team for that matter.
Yeah, and we'll get into later on here in the show just more so about what are South Carolina's main needs for the offseason. Yeah. I've written about it on Central, but talking a little bit more briefly here just about what that could look like and what that might entail. But there are still a few guys that have not, at the time of this, just not announced one way or the other, made it publicly known what they're doing for next season. You have, I believe this is about as final of a list as you can have right now: Jarvis Evans, Henry Kazmar, Nathan Hall, Cooper Parks, Gavin Brayland, Riley Goodman, Ashton Crowther, and Brandon Stone. So those are the guys that I have not seen anything one way or the other on them. Some guys have publicly announced, some guys have, they've told Gamecock Central, whoever, different outlets that they're coming back or not returning, But the one name I did not include on there is Ethan Petrie. Now, if you guys did miss it yesterday, he, on his Instagram, I believe just on his Instagram, did post basically just thanking South Carolina for the last 3 years, being the best of his life. Did not expand upon it, didn't say anything else. It was just kind of that, and he just posted, and it was kind of like, that I think you can kind of tell what's going on here in that, like, he's going to be picked pretty high in the draft. Like, it's not like one of these things where in these other leagues, you have to be in the draft and that's it. Like, you can't come back or whatever. Like, if these guys don't get picked necessarily super high, more times than not, they're like, Ethan's going to be going. Like, I think that's pretty much a foregone conclusion. But if he's even picked in the later rounds, you always have the opportunity to come back if you have another year of eligibility. We see that sometimes, but more times than not, teams are not wasting picks on guys that they know are not going, or they're not sure are going to sign with them professionally. With Ethan, I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that we all knew was coming eventually, is that he's going to be turning pro. So you won't be having him back next year just based on that post there. And I think that's something that is not really much of a surprise at all.
No, not at all. I mean, he's given everything. He's given everything to this program. He's been a phenomenal player. He'll go down as one of the best to ever put on a Gamecock jersey, and we, very special to be able to watch him the last 3 years. And he's put himself in the position to have a life-changing event, here in the next few weeks. Draft. They've moved the draft to like All-Star Weekend now, right?
So, yeah, it's during All-Star Week. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he's about a month away from being able to take the next step forward in his journey, and I love that for him. He's done everything he can do at this level, and he is ready to move on and make those next steps to try to reach the ultimate goal of being a Major League Baseball player.
Absolutely. So Ethan, pretty much conclusion that he's not coming back, and not surprising, honestly, because he's done great here at South Carolina. Even with how he got hurt here at the end of the year, it stinks for him, but obviously he's going to have a great future there in the pros. Now, other guys I think that need to look at potentially is not coming back. I think Nathan Hall is an interesting one, and maybe Henry Kazmar you could throw in there as well. I did see Henry. I mean, Nathan's been appearing on draft, prospect lists and all that. And, I fully expect him to be picked pretty early on, kind of like Petrie, maybe a few rounds later, but I expect him to go pro as well. I think you can maybe say the same for Henry Kazmar. I do wonder what's going to happen there because he's got another year of eligibility. He could return for his senior year. Then again, he could also transfer. We don't know yet for sure. But also, he has the opportunity to be drafted. And again, like I said, if you're getting picked, I mean, we saw this with a lot of guys last year that were even picked in the later rounds. Like Eli Jones is a perfect example. Carson, Cole's brother, who signed out of high school with the Blue Jays. Like if you're getting picked, like it's 20 rounds. So if you're getting picked even in the later rounds, there's a good chance you're still going to turn pro. Maybe because you just don't know what is going to happen next year. You can't necessarily know for sure if your stock is going to be the exact same or it's going to, deteriorate. We just don't know for sure. And so I think Henry's an interesting case where you'd like to have him back because right now, as things stand, you don't really have much middle infield depth. Like you don't have Caden Gaskin. You don't have Jordan Carrion. You don't have Nolan Naraki. You have no second baseman help right now. You have Will Craddock coming in. So I think that's a nice piece from the high school ranks that you're bringing in. Then you also have Jack Reynolds from JUCO that plays some shortstop, can play some second base, I'm sure. So you got guys like that coming in. But you lose Henry, that's kind of a big piece because he really had a nice season with South Carolina.
No, Henry absolutely. Once conference play kind of started, he really locked in. I think of the remaining people that are out there again, as you've said, 14 in the portal, and then another 7 or 8 that were 6 or 7 that we're not sure on. That could be as many as 20 guys you've got to replace. That doesn't include the people that have graduated that are just have moved on. So, we're looking at upwards of 25 guys that you're having to replace. So yeah, I think if you would have asked me this question, beginning of the season, I'm like, yeah, if Henry needs to go, wherever it is. But I think it is, unless he's going into the draft, which again, somebody, he had a great end of the year. And honestly, if he hears his name called, he might be another one that's just like, you know what? I don't know if I can put a better string of games together. Why risk it and come back? I've seen guys do that and it, backfired. So I think Henry is one, if he hears his name called, he's signing that dotted line. But I think it'd be really good to get him back. I think he would be he'd be your starting shortstop day one, and that's just a relief on a manager's mind when you can pencil in the same person at that spot every day. So aside from Nathan Hall, which again I think is another draft guy, I think Nathan had such a great year. He's drafted. He's going to take the next step. I think Henry's just one to keep an eye on because it's tough to replace everything up the middle, which they are. I mean, that's kind of the position they're in. You like to build your team, from the inside out. You like to be real strong up the middle. They're rebuilding. And I say rebuilding, I mean just from a straight roster construction. It's got to be rebuilt because there's nobody there.
Yeah, no, totally. And we'll see what happens with Henry. Again, the draft is during All-Star Week in Atlanta. So we're talking like June or July, like 15th, around that time. So about another month and like 10 days from now, we'll kind of start to see who trickles out, who is getting picked. And again, a lot of the guys that, there's a lot of guys that are draft eligible. You have to be a junior or you have to have 3 years under your belt to be draft eligible, or you have to be 21.
Or be 21.
Yes.
Tyler Webb, folks. Tyler Webb was a sophomore, draft eligible, because he was 21 as he turned 21 as a sophomore. So that was just a fun thing that we just kind of found out one day. I was like, oh yeah, Tyler's available to be drafted this year, and thankfully he stuck around and helped the team some more. But just those little nuggets like that, yeah, just like, oh yeah, this guy.
Yeah, no, totally. And Eli Jersenbeck was the same way last year. So point is, you're probably losing, I would say for sure, Nathan. We'll see on Kaz. You never know with some of these high school kids and JUCO guys that might get plucked. I mean, you just never can be too sure. Don't have a feel on what that really looks like yet, but we'll know here in about a month or so. But let's kind of shift gears now that we're at the halfway point. We've talked about all the returning stuff and the current guys. Let's talk about some of the new guys coming in. So as of right now, this is all in addition to what they have with high school and the JUCO commits that they already have in their recruiting class. 4 transfer portal commits so far. A lot of work still needs to be done, but I think this is a good start with where things are heading. You got Josh Gregory from Louisiana Monroe. He was a high leverage reliever, the best pitcher on the Warhawks' staff. this past season. I mean, ULM had I was just looking at some of the numbers here for a story I'm going to work on for tomorrow, but I mean, ULM's pitching was just dreadful this past season. You talk about South Carolina having a bad year. These guys were probably just as bad, and Gregory was like the only consistently good pitcher out of the bullpen, just on staff in general. So that's a big plus guy to get there, and he throws mid 90s. So that's about what you want right there. Logan Sutter from Purdue, an interesting guy that plays the corner infield spots, can DH as well for sure. He DH'd a lot with the Boilermakers, but he was Purdue's Offensive Player of the Year and an All Big Ten performer. So very good season for him or very good 2 seasons for him with the Boilermakers.
Yep.
He had a 1,000+ OPS in both seasons. So a lot to like there. We're going to get back to this next guy here in a second because I think it's probably the most interesting one. But the latest one was yesterday. Amp Phillips that's right, AMP. So what a sick name, Amp Phillips. From USC Upstate. He pitched at Spartanburg Methodist for 2 years, transferred to Upstate, started the year out in the bullpen, picked up some saves. So he was very good out of the bullpen. Then he jumps into the rotation about mid-March, makes 12 starts. He went 7-2 with a 3.64 ERA, 81 strikeouts, 29 walks, over 84 innings. He did have a complete game shutout. I believe it was in the Big South tournament against Winthrop. So that was big for him right there. And then he pitched against Clemson and went 6 innings in the regional last weekend.
Good, too.
He looked good. So he's probably, as we'll get into here in a minute, he's probably the best transfer you've picked up so far, easily. And I think he's a guy that we'll see if he is draft eligible, so he could get picked in the draft, which is something you have to keep an eye on. But if he comes to South Carolina, I think there's a lot of potential there. And then the last guy that I wanted to mention here, Cullen Horowitz, who is from Samford. Very unique player because he's a two-way guy. He pitched for Samford. He played a lot of different positions and also hit for that team. Now, when that commitment became official, a lot of people online, it seemed fans and whatnot, just looked at the numbers, the 8.71 ERA and the 0.63 batting average. Like, you look at that and you're like, why is South Carolina even on to this guy? There are a few things, though, that I think that probably were not mentioned right away that you look at it more in depth and you're like, okay, like this guy, there's something to it. I see what South Carolina sees in this kid. He had 20 strikeouts in 10.1 innings this season. That's a very good number right there. I'd love to know what the strikeout or the K per 9 look at that is.
So I did glance a little bit at his game charts, and he struck out at least one batter in every appearance except for a third of an inning appearance against Auburn. But every appearance he had at least one strikeout. And I mean, he was I don't think he threw any more than 2 innings in a single outing. So, striking out a batter every inning.
But the guy, the big thing with that is, and again, the strikeouts were great and all that. The big thing with him is that I think a lot of people just did not realize he throws very hard. I mean, he throws definitely upper 90s. Like, we're talking like 95 to 99 miles an hour. That's probably why we're seeing South Carolina go after him, because they see something there that they can work with. And he's a junior, so he's got another year left of eligibility, and he played a few years at JUCO. So we'll see if he gets another year or whatnot. I don't know exactly what the case will look like there. But I think he's a little bit of a project in that, like, okay, the numbers were not great last year, or this season, I should say. But the velocity is exactly where they want it to be. And they see something there with the stuff. And it's all about development. Like, we're going to touch on development here in a little bit and what needs to change for next season. But if he can be developed, the velocity is great. If he can be developed, he's going to be something to really keep an eye on for the 2026 season. But those are the current guys they've gotten so far. Let's just talk about it, break some of these guys down. Let's start with Cullen, though. I mean, we talked about him in upper 90s on his velo. I mean, you're a pitcher. You remember throwing? Did you ever throw that hard? Or
heck no. I topped out. I think I topped out at 93, maybe 94. I was 90 to 92. out of the bullpen, maybe 91 to 93. But I wish I threw as hard as some of these guys. No, he's interesting, right? It seems based on some of the stuff I've read, I've tried, I kind of tried to dig into, especially the D1 guys, the transfer portal guys. I've tried to dig into their stuff a little bit, and he was, I believe, just based off the what I looked at, they officially made the full-time switch for him to be a full-time pitcher. He still got a couple ABs here or there, but it was a drastic decline from his previous year, and that it seemed to be a concerted effort to turn him into a full-time pitcher. And if he has that kind of stuff and can kind of dedicate that level of craftsmanship into his work, like you said, if they can develop it, I think that's a really good piece. That's a closer for you, or that's just somebody that you need a strikeout. That's who you bring in. It is concerning. I think I saw he had 7 hit batters on top of all the walks he had. So that is a level of concern, especially that's going to be some PTSD for fans of this past season. Just all the free passes, but I think the arm is so special that to really diving full on in on being a pitcher, I think you'll see those strides be made. I don't think people understand how tough it is practice wise. I mean, you see practice, the pitchers are doing stuff. They are on their own. And then the hitters are doing stuff. And, Michael Roth, great example. Michael Roth was a two-way guy when he first got to South Carolina. And it's tough, man. And then when you saw when Roth kind of just put everything in the pitching, it exploded for him. So I think these, they're examples of guys that kind of take that hitting off their plate a little bit, and then really just focus in on the pitching side, and their careers just take off. So I think that's definitely a possibility for Cullen.
Oh, totally. I'm very excited to see what he looks like going into this upcoming season here. Now, I think, like I said, I mentioned the word project before. I still think that is definitely the case, because you look at the numbers, the ERA and whatnot. Obviously, some work does need to be done to bring that down. Again, the velo is a very interesting prospect. Now, the 3 other guys that brought in so far, I think these are all guys that are ready to come in and make an immediate impact. Like, I really do like the way, I know how bad this past season was, but I really do think the guys that they're bringing in, I got to give credit where it's due. I think South Carolina's done a very nice job identifying good players out of the portal, getting them to come commit and be a part of this turnaround that Paul Maneri has talked about. Now, I'm going to start here with Amp Phillips, the most recent commit as of yesterday. And again, more are going to be eventually coming in. So Amp Phillips, like I said, really good numbers. I think this is a guy, you look at Jake McCoy as well, and we will see what happens with a guy like Brandon Stone potentially coming back. I'm not sure yet on that right now, but you look at those 3 guys, if they were all to come back, like, I think Amp Phillips can be a nice Friday or Saturday arm in the weekend rotation. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think?
Absolutely. I the Brandon piece here is kind of the question mark, but regardless, I think you have your weekend starters now. That's huge, because they're not, that they're good. They have enough talent to where you can say in June of 2025 that you have your weekend starters for 2026. Like, they are that talented. So not a lot of teams can turn around and say that, right now. And that is because then you can start building around the rest of it. You're not having to, all right, we gotta go get a Friday guy, or we gotta go get it's like, all right, we probably need 2 more starting pitchers if Brandon comes back. If Brandon doesn't, we probably need 3. on top of everything we're bringing in so that guys can compete, because you still want it to be competition. You're not going to hand the stuff to them. But yeah, I absolutely think Amp's going to be a weekend guy. And then like I said, you got 2 or 3 weekend guys. That's huge.
Now, sticking with the pitching here, Josh Gregory, the first guy to commit to South Carolina. And for context, 2 of these guys did commit before the portal officially opened. Actually, I think it was 3, because you had Josh Gregory commit. And the reason why he was able to enter the portal and all that early, number one, if you're a grad transfer, you can, obviously enter the portal anytime. But also his coach left after the season. So a bunch of ULM guys have entered the portal, and you have that window where you can enter right after that. And so he did. And South Carolina was able to get him, I believe it was on Memorial Day. So the portal opened on June 2nd. So that was on Monday. So only a few days ago. But Gregory is a very interesting piece because, number one, he's from Baton Rouge. So that's right in Paul Maneri's neck of the woods when he was at LSU for years. And I remember talking to Josh, and he was mentioning, how much he admired Paul Maneri and all that from his days at LSU and even now. So that's one piece to it. But this is a bullpen arm we're talking about here. This is a strictly reliever that pitched primarily out of relief only with the Warhawks this season. Did lead the team in saves, ERA, WHIP, very good numbers there. And opponent batting average was under 200. So all good indications right there. This is going to be good. He's got a fastball in the mid-90s with a splitter that's very solid as well. I like what this is looking like, and I think South Carolina's found here a potential. I don't know if it's going to be a closer, but I think you're looking at a guy that's going to be your 8th, 9th inning guy for sure.
Yeah, exactly. You got somebody at your nose pitching at the end of games. Where we talked all season, it didn't feel like, other than Sweeney, throwing the night from most of the time, you were flipping a coin. You were really playing the lottery if you're trying to figure out who the heck was going to throw in the 7th, 8th innings. So yeah, getting Gregory in, I think is such a big. He's an experienced reliever. Because I've talked about it before. It's really hard when you're a starter to be told, all right, you're going to the bullpen, and like to change everything you do and to like be a reliever. I'll never forget my very first relief appearance out of the bullpen was opening weekend against Duquesne, and I probably threw 40 pitches in the bullpen because I didn't know how to do it, and it's hard. It's one of those things like, oh yeah, you get warmed up like you do. You throw your bullpen pitches and you go in. It's such a different animal. So to have somebody with that experience of being a bullpen guy, being a good bullpen guy, I think again, you said it. This staff, there's a long way to go. And recruiting's only a portion of building a program, but the staff's knocked it out of the park so far to start this off season, portal season, everything. They've crushed it. They kept the 2 guys they had to keep, the Bo and KJ. They kept both of them. They've gotten just really solid pieces from the JUCO ranks and out of the portal so far. And I think, again, there has to be more because they've got to build a team as they're losing 20 plus players. So there's going to be more down the road, but I just think that they're off to a solid start. You read some of the reports, the university at athletic department is putting a ton of resources into this roster. So yeah, I think I think it's only going to get better. So, just like you said, I think these are 3 impact guys with a possible 4th who's a project that could be better than all of them. If he can learn how to hone that fastball in and stay in the strike zone more of the time. But I think all 3 of those guys are going to be guys you talk about. Like if we, when we're doing this show next year, we're going to log on, we're going to hop on a Wednesday and we're going to talk about Ant Phillips throwing, 6 innings on Saturday and Logan Sutter hitting, a 2-run home run that gave the team the lead. I just think, and Josh Gregory, throw in 2 big innings to get them a series win. I just think these guys are legitimate baseball players that can come in and help the program.
Absolutely. And I'm going to briefly touch on Sutter real quick. Just like I mentioned before, offensive player of the year with Purdue, all Big Ten guy. I talked to his JUCO coach the other day because he played 2 seasons at JUCO before coming to Purdue for the next 2 seasons. Very interesting thing here that I learned, and I probably should have picked up on this before, was that Terry Rooney recruited him to Purdue. So,
oh wow, yeah.
So very interesting there. But so Rooney was involved in the recruiting for obviously here to South Carolina, but also to Purdue. So very interesting little nugget there. Now the numbers are very good. He had 15 homers, 22 doubles in 2025, and that's higher than any of the USC players this season. So very good production there. And I mentioned the 1,000+ OPS is another great little stat to look at. But from talking to his old JUCO coach, he mentioned, and you see it in the highlight reels and stuff, he has a lot of gap-to-gap opposite field power, which I think is an underrated little thing that you can have as a baseball player, especially as a hitter, when you're not just grounding. So many of South Carolina's hits this season were singles, right? Ground balls. They had so many double plays, more than anyone.
Yep.
I mean, it was just they were not a power threat team for sure, but they were not a doubles, triples kind of team for most of this season. I feel like a guy like Sutter, I don't know exactly where he would be in this starting lineup. I don't think he's going to be playing either infield spots, but I think he definitely DHs for this team at the very least. I think you see him probably in the middle of the order here as you're probably 3-4 hole hitter. And I think you have Bo Hollins right in there next to him and maybe KJ behind him. I think that's a very nice little core of hitters that you have in this lineup. And Sutter, I think he's going to be if there is a replacement for Ethan Petrie right now, I'd probably say it's Logan Sutter for sure.
Yes. Yeah. I'm pulling up something. I pulled it up earlier and I've got to find it again. He is the type of hitter you need in a lineup. That's kind of like trying to, because you're not going to replace Ethan's production as far as the home run goes. Again, had he not gotten hurt and had he had a little more lineup protection, was going to be challenging Justin Smoke's home run record in 3 years. Like it's not, you're not going to replace Ethan's power with one guy, generally, hey, maybe if they get somebody that can do that, we'll all be celebrating, but no. So I pulled it up. He had 24 games with multi-hits last year, 24. So a third of the season, more than a third of the season, he got at least 2 hits. He hit 300 in Big Ten play with 6 of those home runs. He strikes out. I think his strikeout to walk, he had 32 strikeouts and 19 walks in Big Ten play. So he's not somebody that's just, swinging through it all the time. I think he's a great option. I could even see them sliding him in the 2 hole. And then hopefully we find at least one more big bat, maybe 2 more big bats in the portal. And then you kind of slot those guys in there. But he seems to make good contact, good hard contact. And some of these SEC parks, we got a couple, crackerjack boxes, but for the most part, we got some deep gaps, we got some deep alleys, and I think having somebody that can get the ball in the gap and hit it hard, hit it in the air is going to be so big for these guys. I can't say enough that I think we've gotten just some impact guys already. I think Logan's a big piece of that he can just come in and be a hit machine. And again, hard hits, big hits, not, again, CNI singles through the 6 hole.
And if you want to read a little bit more, I mentioned speaking to his JUCO coach and stuff.
Yep.
Got that story on GamecockCentral.com. If you guys are watching right now, you want to go read something on what Logan's going to bring to the table, because there's a lot more detail in there that did not mention here. Now, let's just kind of start wrapping this up a little bit, and we're gonna be talking throughout the summer here. So we'll get probably more into what needs to change after we see a little bit more of this roster, I would say. But speaking of the roster, last topic I want to touch on here before we get out of here. I want to talk about what's got to be next for this team, right? In terms of, because you mentioned it, they still have a lot of spots to fill on this roster, and going into next year, the roster limit is going to be different, where it's 34 guys. All of them can be full scholarship guys. So that's completely different from the way it used to be with the 11.7 scholarships and whatnot, and the 40-man roster. 34 guys. So I think depending on – I know they're in the 20s right now. I can't remember the exact number. I think it's probably about like 24, 25 guys they got coming for next year with returners, JUCO, high school transfers, all those guys. So it's factoring in everyone right now. And then that does not include the list of guys that have still not made decisions yet and the potential other transfers coming in. But they still need to go out there and get other guys. So let's run through a few positions that I think South Carolina is going to need to continue to heavily target. Pitching is obviously something that you got some good guys coming in so far. You got some nice returners. You need a lot more help, I think, especially in that bullpen, number one, and probably going out there and finding a third starter in your rotation. And then I think you look at catcher as another primary position that you have, Talmadge Lecroy is your main returner right now. We don't know yet what Gavin Braylon's plan is for next season. At the moment, you're losing Ryan Bakes, losing Max Coffer. You're getting Noah Franklin coming in, a freshman, incoming freshman from right here in South Carolina. So that's a big piece to be having joining the team next year. I think also middle infield I mentioned before. If Kazmar's not back, you're losing both of your starters at the middle infield, shortstop, second base spots, and then outfield, Nathan Hall. We'll see what happens with him, Petrie. If those guys were to somehow return, everything changes next year with the outfield. You don't have to worry about the outfield. But where things stand right now and what we think is going to happen in the draft, you're probably losing those guys for sure.
Yeah. I think biggest need right now is catcher. They need a catcher. Aside from the offense stuff, we can be spoiled by what Cole Messina brought as a hitting catcher to college baseball. We can be spoiled by that, but they need a catcher from simple fact of somebody that's experienced that can handle a staff. I just think the pitching last year struggled on their own, but not having somebody who is an everyday catcher who's done it, who this is what they live and breathe is catching. I think that hurt some of the staff not be able to get out of some of those innings that just seem to spiral. I would, it is a long shot. I was checking. I do not believe he has committed anywhere yet. I would absolutely love if they got Carson Tenney from Notre Dame. That would be the home run recruit for as far as the catching position. And then I mentioned earlier they've got to build back up through the spine of the team. They need at least a second baseman, maybe a shortstop, depending on Henry stuff. They're going to need a center fielder more than likely. And the players are out there. Guys are entering the portal in droves. We've seen the news with UVA's Coach O'Connor taking the job at Mississippi State. Those are two big time programs now that have a bunch of players in the portal because of coaching changes. You'd mentioned this earlier, and some I did not know until you told me. Our first base coach, Coach Hendry, right?
Yep, John Hendry.
Coach John Hendry was on staff at UVA under Coach O'Connor 2 years ago or a year ago. With this past, I guess it'll be 2 years ago after the season ends, or so. But UVA is a good program, always nationally ranked. If you can, get one or two guys, there. I think it's there. I think it's available. And I think the staff, again, I agree with everyone that was so disappointed with the season and kind of the things that transpired as the season went on. But we do have to move forward as a fan base, and the team has to move forward. And I think everything that's happening right now is the right direction, is the right step to get this program back to where it needs to be.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'm glad you mentioned Hendry because if you guys don't know, he is on staff at South Carolina. He is the first base coach for the Gamecocks, and he came in with Paul Maneri and Terry Rooney and those guys, but he was at Virginia for 3 seasons as the director of player development. And again, that was pretty recent. So we're talking like he was at Virginia in Omaha this time last year, still finishing out the season with the Cavaliers. Now, the reason we bring that up, as you mentioned, Brian O'Connor leaving Virginia to go to Mississippi State. That's a huge deal. And you mentioned it. Both those programs are having a lot of guys enter the portal. Now, the Virginia side of it, you're going to see a lot of those guys follow O'Connor to Starkville. Like we've seen some guys with the no contact tag. I think we're going to see a lot of the big time players for Virginia follow. It's the players in the middle, I think, that you need to probably keep an eye on, in that if some guys are not sure if they're following him, you can imagine. I mean, that's a good program, like you said, Ethan. Like a lot of those guys are going to be available, and you gotta go after them. We're seeing some SEC schools definitely go after them right now. Like I just saw Tennessee, I think, has one of them visiting. So I think that's a very interesting thing to think about. Like it's the opportunities there, and you have a connection to John Hendry, who was directly involved in bringing in a lot of those players and developing them at Virginia. So that's big. And then you also have the SEC aspect of it with Mississippi State. A lot of those guys leaving. South Carolina played them earlier this year. I mean, there's going to be a lot of them that do end up leaving. Some will definitely stay for sure. But, I mean, Mississippi State's got some dudes on that team. There's a reason why after Lamonis was fired with Justin Parker taking over as the interim, they were able to turn their season around and get to the postseason in a regional where they'd lose to Florida State. So a lot of opportunity out there for the taking. And South Carolina is going to still be a major player in the portal, going after not just guys like that, I don't think. I think we're going to see them go after – they're going to do what they can to, especially at Virginia. If you're not trying to get guys from that school with the connection that you have, the golden ticket basically, I don't know what you're doing. But I think we're also going to see South Carolina look internally at the schools in the state of South Carolina. Like we just saw it with USC Upstate. We saw it with, I mean, there's obviously a bunch of other bridge schools here like USC Sumter, Union, Aiken. There's a lot of opportunity there. Heck, they've obviously recruited from Clemson.
I was just going to bring that up. I mean, Nathan Hall last year.
Nathan Hall. Nolan Naraki was also from there too.
Yep.
So you've found some nice in-state pieces as well. That's not even just mention the fact that there are a lot of guys at different schools that are not even near South Carolina, but these kids grew up playing in the state and lived here. So that's something that I think they're definitely going to look at. But obviously, you want to go get the best players possible. Paul's talked about it plenty of times now. He's looking to go get guys that are going to hit home runs and they're going to throw hard and they're going to be very good. We've seen that so far. Yeah, they've done it so far. Like Logan Sutter adds a lot more pop to this lineup, but he's just one guy. You have a nice bullpen piece in Josh Gregory in the back end that could complement Parker Marlatt very well. Still feel like you need maybe a left-hander out there in the bullpen to kind of balance things out. And then, more offense and starting pitching. I mean, there's a lot to still fill out here with a bunch of roster spots potentially still open. But again, you have basically – it's June 5th. The portal is open till July 1st. I mean, this is only week 1, and they've got 4 guys already committed. So that's a big, big sign. And there's going to be more on the way with Terry Rooney and Monty Lee both posting yesterday on their Twitter that they do that little GIF thing, and that basically means like there's guys that are going to be committing.
Yeah.
So we'll see when that happens. Again, that'll be on GamecockCentral.com whenever those commitments do eventually become public. We just, it's not known at the time, what exactly that looks like, but keep an eye out for it for sure. So Ethan, I think that's going to do it for us. Again, we will reconvene here every few weeks. I think just to there's going to be more portal stuff going on. A lot more guys that are going to be joining the team, a lot of guys that might be leaving. The draft is in about a month. I mean, we're going to have a lot more to talk about this baseball offseason, but I think the Gamecocks are off to a good start. And, more work to do, but off to a solid start.
Yeah, I I was as critical as most when it came to the coaching stuff this season, but they're doing they're taking the steps to kind of rectify, what happened. I mean, again, an abject failure, that we talked about this past season. So I think, again, they're taking the right steps. They've as well as you can do, they've done it so far, this off season. Like you've said, plenty more hurdles to clear, and players to go get, to make this a winning baseball team again. But I can just judge what they've been doing, and right now they've been doing well, and I will happily sing those praises because I want these guys to want the program to be good again. So I think they've definitely taken the right steps to get the bones of a good team there, and I think with one or two big additions, and then some other glue guys and guys that will do things that aren't necessarily sexy or celebrated on the message boards. If we can get some of those guys in, I think we got a chance to be a really good team.
Yeah, again, still a long way to go till the 2026 season, but the offseason.
Can't hear you. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So anyway, I think South Carolina, gotten off to a good start, like I said, and the season is still months and months away. Got a long time to go until the 2026 season. I mean, College World Series hasn't even started yet, so a lot to still unpack with the college baseball season. But for South Carolina, all season is all underway, and we're gonna have a lot more coverage on GamecockCentral.com. So be sure to stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this live stream as we're wrapping up now, be sure to give it a thumbs up as always, and follow us on all of our social media platforms. Gamecock Central on Twitter, Instagram, and go subscribe to GamecockCentral.com, as well as our YouTube page. So for me, Jack T. Veltri at Jack T. Veltri on Twitter. For Ethan, E_train32. So give us both a follow over there. So that's going to do it for us for now. Good catching up with everyone and reconvening about the season as a whole, and just looking ahead to the offseason now as things are really underway for the Gamecocks. So we'll be back live here in a few weeks to kind of meet up again. We'll discuss everything else going on. So for GamecockCentral.com, I'm Jack Veltri, Ethan Carter. Appreciate you guys as always, and have a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon.